Okay, so today is not really gonna be a My Hero Academia video because there's something about Dr. Stone that I really want to talk about, especially since I don't really review this series anymore, but I still read it. I really enjoy it. I just dropped it on my channel because it's kind of fucking up my views when, you know, My Hero Academia content is doing really well and Dr. Stone is not really doing as well. So, but what I want to talk about is what went down in the latest chapter of Dr. Stone, or rather what it kind of ended off on, because it is seemingly a really huge thing for the story, because what it says is that it's wrapping up the first chapter, as they called it, and it's now moving on to the second chapter. Obviously they're not referring to the weekly chapters, it's more like they're referring to an arc or a saga or something like that. And to me that kind of tells me that, you know, this story is definitely gonna have more than two said chapters, as they call it. I know some people have been speculating that since Tsukasa is moving on Senku right now, that we're not really gonna be getting a said third chapter, but to me it definitely seems like this is not the final one that we're moving into, especially since the series is this short, but also because it didn't say we're moving on to the final chapter, it said we're moving on to the second chapter, which in itself kind of suggests that there's gonna be more than two, at least 3 parts, I would say, probably even more if we're lucky. I mean, I don't really know how long this story is going to end up being, but I can definitely imagine it being 3 to 4 parts maybe. Might not be like a massive shonen, you never know. It might end off kind of like The Promised Neverland, I guess. It might be around 200 chapters, maybe less, maybe more. Hard to tell at this time, but what I want to talk about is kind of the story this far and what we might be expecting in the second part, of course, because right now, or up until this point rather, we've had the build-up and the establishing of the Kingdom of Science that Senku wanted to have. He wanted to have the Kingdom of Science to use against the Empire of Tsukasa, because we know Tsukasa, he wants nothing more than to kill Senku pretty much. Now, it is a bit unclear if Tsukasa actually knows whether Senku's alive or not, because he's moving on the Kingdom of Science, which kind of means that he obviously knows that Senku's alive. I mean, why else would he move on the Kingdom of Science? But at the same time, that magician guy that I can never remember the name of, he's told Tsukasa that he's dead. So Tsukasa must have somehow realized that this guy was not being entirely honest with him, and obviously these magicians might just have been tricking Senku. That's also a possibility. He might have told Senku that he's gonna tell Tsukasa that he's dead, but in reality he's gonna backstab Senku eventually. You know, these things happen. He's not exactly your straight up honest person. He's very sketchy, he's very mischievous, so I could definitely see something like that being the case. You know, he's actually on Tsukasa's side even though it's pretending to be on Senku's side, and Senku probably realizes that having him around is not really the safest option, but you know, what can he do about it? Because before now he wasn't really the chieftain of the village, meaning that he couldn't really control if this man was allowed inside the village or not. And although a kill attempt was made on this magician dude, that didn't really stop him from coming back, interestingly enough. I mean, yes, he did enter the village during the games because pretty much anyone was welcome at that time, so he's been more careful ever since that attempt on his life, of course. But now that Senku is in control, he pretty much has nothing else to fear, because now even Magma and everybody else, they kind of have to bow before Senku in a way, even though I'm pretty sure Senku is not gonna be that type of guy who takes complete control. It's not gonna be like some kind of dictator. I don't think that's gonna be the case. I think Senku wants to restore society as it was, so he's gonna obviously want to keep things in order. He's gonna want rules, probably some kind of political system, if that's even possible with the population that they have right now. But in the future of Dr. Stone, like this upcoming part or chapter, whatever you want to call it, because it did say Tsukasa is moving on Kingdom of Science, but I don't really think we're gonna be seeing them arriving already the next chapter or 2-3 chapters from now. I think it's gonna be a while until they actually arrive. They kind of need to prepare for the upcoming fight or battle, whatever it's gonna end up being. It's gonna be Tsukasa's team, you know, they're gonna be wanting to just fuck these people up. They don't want Senku to fulfill his plans in the same way that Senku doesn't really want Tsukasa to succeed in what he wants to do. They're really on the opposite ends when it comes to goals. Now, the really good part about them approaching, in my opinion, is that we might finally get to see Taiju and that girl again, because we haven't seen them in absolutely forever. I think it's been maybe 20-30 chapters, well not 30 but maybe 20 chapters since we saw Taiju. And while he's kind of a blockhead in a way, he is supposedly one of the main protagonists of the series, because it was him and Senku that this story was originally about. So we kind of need to have him back in the story at some point, and I think once he's back he's probably gonna be on Senku's side, you know, for the time being. I don't really think he's gonna go back to Tsukasa's side, because at the end of the day he was only on Tsukasa's side to really be on the safe end, I suppose. He didn't really want to end up dying by Tsukasa's hands or something else. I don't quite remember exactly the reason, but I do believe it was either something like that or they were on Tsukasa's side to spy. It's one of the two. I'd really have to reread the story to fully understand that again, because obviously that was a long time ago since I read that. So yeah, I'm not too refreshed on the story right now, but regardless of why they actually ended up being on Tsukasa's side, it's gonna be huge to have them reunite with Senku, and obviously then Taiju and the others, they're gonna be able to meet Kohaku, Suika, Chrome, Ginro, Kinro, you know, everyone that we've been having a lot of screen time of lately. And that is something that I would really love seeing, you know, more character interactions of characters we haven't really seen before, because I remember Kohaku kind of spied on Taiju and Senku before she was actually introduced as a character. We saw like a silhouette of her, I think. So she kind of knows of Taiju, although she has never spoken to him before. And she probably doesn't know his name or anything like that either, but she was kind of around, spying in the bushes while they were doing stuff. And yeah, having these kind of interactions, you know, once they actually reunite in whatever way they reunite, because I think it's gonna be safe to assume it's not gonna be on the best terms, because obviously if they reunite with Senku, then it's gonna be around the same time as Tsukasa arrives at the Kingdom of Science, which means that's gonna be a really conflicting moment in the story. And it's not gonna happen like I said, it's not gonna happen in a couple of chapters probably. We're gonna have a bunch of preparations and whatnot. We might even get to see some more screen time from the Empire of Tsukasa. We might get less of Senku and more of Taiju, because like I said, Taiju is one of the main characters in the story. So I wouldn't really be too surprised if they change around a lot and just have a lot of Taiju screen time instead of Senku screen time. I wouldn't mind that at all, even though Senku is my favorite character by far. Having some other characters in focus would be really nice. You know, it would really be a change of environment, a change of atmosphere, and all of these kind of things. It would really change things up a lot, and I think most people can agree, at least I hope most people can agree, that that is something that would be really good for the diversity of the story, instead of just having Senku, Chrome and everybody else all of the time until they reunite. Because like, I mean, as I kind of said, it's been tens of chapters since we saw Taiju and whatever his girl is called. I cannot remember that name, it's such a complicated name. But when Tsukasa and Senku actually meet as enemies, of course, what I really want is to get more insight on the people on Tsukasa's side, because we've only met one new character ever since, and that is the magician dude, the trickster, whatever the fuck his name is. Who cares what his name is, right? You know who I'm talking about. That's the important bit. He's the only new person ever since they split up that we've encountered. So having a lot more interesting characters on Tsukasa's end who agrees with Tsukasa, that would be really interesting. Maybe even some people who disagrees with Tsukasa, maybe someone will actually change side and go over to Senku's side and the other way around. You just never know. There may be some traitors on Senku's side as well. Maybe, for instance, Magma could end up going to Tsukasa. That would be really interesting, given how he doesn't really seem to agree with the rest of the village most of the time. Like, he wanted to cheat in order to get the chieftain position. Now, even though he wouldn't really be a leader in Tsukasa's empire, he would probably be of great value to Tsukasa in the sense that he's really different from the rest of the village. You know, he's willing to do a lot of crazy shit. Like, he was willing to kill Ruri because he was gonna make it look like an accident, and I think Senku could easily banish him for that alone. I honestly do believe he could. Whether he will, I don't know, but he definitely could. And if he shows any kind of signs that he's against Senku being the chieftain and that he's willing to side with Tsukasa whenever the time comes, he's probably gonna change side. If anyone is changing side on Senku's end, I think it's definitely gonna be Magma, possibly the little guy who was Magma's accomplice. Now, as for Tsukasa's end, it's really impossible to tell because apart from Taiju and his girlfriend, well, future girlfriend should we say, we haven't really been introduced to a lot of characters, in fact just one, so we can't really speculate on his end, but I'm sure there may be some people on that end that will actually side with Senku that we should have our old ways. Because although Tsukasa revives specific people, he tries to find people that will agree with him. That's probably not gonna be that accurate all of the time. I don't think you could expect everyone that he revives to agree with him blindly, after seeing that Senku is actually trying to build up something that was lost, while Tsukasa obviously wants to create a whole new world. He wants to start from ground zero and make it differently from how it was before the stone petrified everybody. Anyway, that's really all I had to say about Dr. Stone for now. I might make a similar video to this at some point in the future. I'm not gonna be reviewing the series weekly, but I'll talk about it every now and then because I really do love Dr. Stone. So yeah, I'd love to know what you think down below in the comments about Dr. Stone if you're reading it. If you don't, I really suggest you get on that because it's one of the greatest modern shonens that I've ever read. Currently, it is actually my second favorite manga that I'm reading, so that should really tell you just exactly how I feel about it. Doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna have that same love for it, but it's still a really great series nonetheless. Anyway, as always, if you did, be sure to Detroit smash that like button if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new to my channel. This has been your favorite host Perm, and I will see you next time.